The courtroom was packed to capacity. Every seat in the gallery was filled, from top legal analysts to curious onlookers who had come just to witness Elon Musk, the billionaire tech mogul, step into unfamiliar territory, a high-stakes courtroom battle where he was the one on trial. The air buzzed with anticipation, a mixture of disbelief and intrigue hanging thick as lawyers whispered, journalists scribbled notes, and cameras flashed in the back of the room, capturing what was already being called a trial of the decade. But amid all the chatter and legal maneuvering, one detail stood out like a sore thumb. Elon Musk was sitting alone at the defense table. No high-powered attorneys flanked him, no polished legal team whispering last-minute strategies in his ear. Instead, he sat comfortably, flipping through a well-worn yellow legal pad, as if he were casually reviewing notes for a casual business meeting rather than preparing to take on an army of elite corporate litigators. The judge, a sharp-witted veteran known for her no-nonsense demeanor, tapped her gavel lightly. She peered over her glasses at Musk, her expression a blend of skepticism and amusement. "Mr. Musk," she said, her tone tinged with disbelief, "are you telling this court that you intend to represent yourself?" The murmurs grew louder. A few chuckles echoed from the legal team seated at the plaintiff's table. Magnatech's lead attorney smirked, his expensive watch glinting under the fluorescent lights as he leaned back confidently. His firm had spent months preparing for this moment, securing the most feared and formidable legal experts in the country. In their eyes, Musk had already lost. Musk barely looked up, flipping a page as though the question wasn't worth a second thought. He shrugged. "Seems fair, doesn't it?" he mused, his voice laced with nonchalance. One genius against, what, 10 lawyers? The courtroom fell into a stunned silence before erupting into laughter. But this time, the amusement wasn't entirely at Musk's expense. Some people laughed out of sheer disbelief, others because they had seen Musk defy expectations before. Was he being reckless, arrogant, or did he actually have a plan? The judge exhaled, shaking her head, but there was a flicker of curiosity in her eyes. She motioned toward Magnatech's attorneys. "Proceed," she ordered, as if already predicting how this would unfold. And just like that, one of the most unpredictable legal battles in corporate history had begun. But what no one in that courtroom, neither the judge, the jury, nor the smug Magnatech executives, realized was that Musk hadn't come here just to defend himself. He had walked into this courtroom armed with something far more dangerous than a legal team. He had the truth. This wasn't a lawsuit. It was a meticulously planned ambush. And every single person in that courtroom had just walked into his trap. Rock it before we continue. If you're hooked on this story, hit the like button and subscribe. You won't believe what Musk does next. The moment Elon Musk confirmed that he would be representing himself, the entire courtroom seemed to pause, as if the air had thickened with anticipation. What had begun as a seemingly standard corporate dispute had suddenly transformed into something far more gripping, a battle not just of legality, but of intellect, strategy, and sheer audacity. The opposing counsel, Jonathan Wexler, a powerhouse litigator with a reputation for dismantling high-profile defendants, took a slow, deliberate step toward the jury box. His every movement exuded confidence, the kind that comes from winning case after case, from knowing exactly how to make an opponent crumble under pressure. His smirk was calculated, his suit perfectly tailored, and his presence designed to intimidate. He turned toward the jurors, clasping his hands as if he were a teacher about to lecture a classroom of students. His voice, smooth and deliberate, filled the courtroom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered here today for one reason, to hold even the most powerful among us accountable." He let the words settle, giving just enough time for the gravity of his statement to sink in. Now, let's not be mistaken. Mr. Musk may be a visionary. He may be an innovator. Some might even call him a genius. But one thing he is not, he paused for effect, is a lawyer. A ripple of low chuckles moved through the spectators. Musk, sitting calmly at the defense table, simply raised an eyebrow, unfazed. Wexler continued, pacing now, feeding off the energy in the room. You see, the law isn't like physics. It isn't about launching rockets or selling electric cars. The law is about precision, about discipline, about a deep understanding of principles that have governed society for centuries. He turned back to Musk, eyes narrowing. And from what we've seen, Mr. Musk believes he is above those principles. The words lingered. A few members of the jury shifted slightly, casting glances at Musk, as if gauging his reaction. But Musk? He did nothing. No eye roll, no sarcastic remark, no visible irritation. Just a small, knowing smile. If Wexler was thrown off by the lack of reaction, he didn't show it. Instead, he reached for a thick binder stacked with documents and slammed it onto the table beside him. The sound echoed through the courtroom like a gavel striking wood. In this binder, you'll find an overwhelming amount of evidence. Emails, signed contracts, witness testimonies, financial reports. Everything you need to see that Mr. Musk knowingly, willfully, and unapologetically violated business agreements that cost my client, Magnatech, millions of dollars. His voice grew sharper, his pacing a little quicker, his delivery designed to drive home the weight of Musk's alleged wrongdoing. And yet, despite the facts, despite the signed agreements, Mr. Musk sits here today, choosing to defend himself. Why? He turned to the jury, voice now barely above a whisper, controlled, intentional. Because he thinks he can outsmart us all. The courtroom was silent. All eyes flickered back to Musk. Finally, Musk leaned forward slightly, his fingers lacing together as he regarded Wexler with something that looked suspiciously like amusement. If I wanted to outsmart you, he said casually, I would have done it before we even stepped into this room. Laughter rippled through the crowd, quickly silenced by the judge's sharp gavel. Wexler clenched his jaw, but forced a smirk. Well, Mr. Musk, perhaps now is your chance. If you think you understand the law better than those who practice it daily, by all means, enlighten us. Musk tilted his head, then, calmly, methodically, reached into his briefcase. Instead of responding with words, he pulled out a folder, but not just any folder. This one was thick, well-worn, filled with documents that had the kind of weight that made lawyers nervous. He slid it toward the judge, tapping it lightly with his finger before meeting Wexler's gaze. You're right, Jonathan, Musk said, his voice even. This case isn't about physics or launching rockets. It's about truth. And you and I both know the truth isn't in that binder of yours. The smirk vanished from Wexler's face. Because if Musk had what he suspected in that folder, this case wasn't about to be won on courtroom theatrics. It was about to be something much, much bigger. The courtroom was still. The weight of Elon Musk's words had shifted the balance of power in a way no one had expected. Opposing counsel Jonathan Wexler, a man known for tearing apart billionaires in legal battles, no longer had the confident smirk he had worn just moments before. The judge, now intrigued, adjusted her glasses and leaned slightly forward. Mr. Musk, you claim that the truth is not in Mr. Wexler's binder. Then tell me, where exactly is it? Musk tapped the folder he had just placed before her. Right here, Your Honor, and I suggest you take a careful look. A hush fell over the courtroom as the judge accepted the documents. Every eye followed her movements. She flipped open the first page, and immediately a change came over her expression. Her brow furrowed, her lips pressed into a thin line. She turned to the next page, then the next, flipping faster now. Wexler cleared his throat, attempting to maintain control of the room. Your Honor, I must object. But the judge held up a hand, silencing him. Then she looked at Musk, her voice calmer now, but sharper. Where did you get this? Musk smiled. I built rockets, Your Honor. Do you really think I don't know how to gather information? Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Even the jury, sworn to impartiality, couldn't help but react. The judge exhaled and turned her gaze toward Wexler, her demeanor shifting from curiosity to something far colder. Mr. Wexler, do you care to explain why the prosecution has deliberately omitted these documents from evidence? The words hit like a lightning bolt. Wexler stiffened. I have no idea what those documents contain. Musk tilted his head. Oh, Jonathan, lying under oath? That's not a good look. The judge slammed her gavel once. Mr. Musk, control yourself. Mr. Wexler, I'll ask again, how do you explain this? Wexler's face flushed with frustration, his carefully crafted confidence cracking before everyone's eyes. His fingers twitched as he rifled through his own papers, as if hoping to magically summon an answer. Musk, meanwhile, leaned back in his chair, completely at ease. He had played this game before, and he had just forced his opponent into checkmate. Finally, Wexler exhaled sharply. Your Honor, if these documents are authentic, then I was unaware of them. Musk let out a soft chuckle. Oh, they're authentic. The judge took a steady breath and addressed the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, I must recess this trial for review of new evidence. Court is adjourned. The gavel came down, and in that instant, it was clear to everyone Elon Musk had just turned the entire case on its head. Before we continue, take a second to like this video and subscribe, because what happens next will leave you speechless. You won't believe how this legal battle unfolds. As the judge exited the courtroom, the tension in the air remained thick, almost suffocating. The jury members exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of intrigue and disbelief. No one had expected Elon Musk to dismantle the prosecution's case so effortlessly. But the battle wasn't over yet. The moment the recess was announced, Jonathan Wexler stormed out, his phone already pressed to his ear. He wasn't going down without a fight. If Musk had turned the tables, Wexler would flip the entire board if he had to. His face was flushed, his usual confident stride replaced with something more urgent, desperation. He paced the courthouse hallway, his voice low but sharp as he barked orders into the receiver. Every second mattered now. He had to pull in favors, contact allies, and craft a counterstrike before Musk gained complete control of the narrative. Meanwhile, Musk remained unfazed, watching the chaos unfold as if he predicted it all along. He leaned toward his lead attorney, Samantha Carter, and murmured something only she could hear. Her eyes flickered with concern as she studied him, her legal instincts warning her that things were far from settled. Elon, I hope you know what you're doing, she whispered under her breath. You just accused a federal prosecutor of withholding evidence in front of a judge. That's not something people walk away from easily. Musk smirked, adjusting his tie with a deliberate calmness that only made Carter more anxious. People also said reusable rockets were impossible, he replied smoothly. They were wrong about that, too. Outside the courtroom, the intensity escalated. Reporters, eager for the next twist in the trial, hovered near the courthouse steps, cameras flashing, microphones ready. The buzz of speculation filled the air. Was Musk playing a dangerous game, or was he 10 steps ahead of everyone in the room? Inside, the judge, now back in her private chambers, studied the documents Musk had forced into the light. The implications of what she was reading were staggering. Her hand hovered over the desk phone. This was bigger than she had anticipated. She needed answers. Within an hour, both legal teams were summoned. The air was thick with unspoken tension as they entered the judge's chambers. Wexler, normally composed, was visibly shaken, his once impeccable confidence showing cracks. This evidence, the judge began, her voice even but firm, raises serious questions about the integrity of this case. She then turned to Wexler, fixing him with a piercing stare. Her expression had shifted from neutral observer to something much more intense. "Mr. Wexler," she continued, her tone measured but carrying unmistakable weight, "I'm giving you one opportunity, to explain why these materials were omitted." The prosecutor swallowed hard, his fingers clenching the edges of the table. For the first time in his career, he had been outmaneuvered. His mind raced. He had anticipated pushback, but not like this. He glanced at the legal aide sitting behind him, searching for a lifeline, a loophole, an excuse, anything. "Elon," Samantha whispered again, her voice tight with urgency, "if they think you leaked this evidence in an improper way, this could turn against us." She knew how these cases worked. Musk had delivered a powerful blow, but a single misstep could cost him everything. But Musk wasn't fazed. He leaned forward, his hands clasped together, eyes locked onto the judge's. "With all due respect, Your Honor," he said smoothly, his voice unwavering, "I believe Mr. Wexler has some explaining to do." A heavy silence filled the room. The judge studied Musk for a long moment, as if trying to decipher his true intentions. Then, slowly, she turned back to Wexler, tapping a manicured nail against the desk. "This trial isn't over," she declared, her voice carrying the full weight of her authority. But this case just took a very different turn. Wexler sat frozen, his carefully crafted strategy crumbling before his eyes. He had prepared for a court battle. But this was something else entirely. Musk had done the impossible, again, but the real battle, it was just beginning. Resolution, legacy, and transformation, expanded and enhanced. The courtroom was silent. The weight of the judge's words still hung in the air like a storm cloud, thick with the tension of what had just transpired. Musk had done more than just defend himself. He had exposed a fundamental flaw in the system. What started as a legal battle had transformed into something much bigger, something that couldn't be ignored or swept under the rug. The media storm erupted within hours. Headlines flashed across every major news outlet. Elon Musk outsmarts federal prosecutor in shocking courtroom showdown. Judge stunned as Musk uncovers hidden evidence. The trial that changed everything. How one man exposed the system. The internet was on fire. Social media exploded with debates, theories, and admiration for Musk's ability to turn the tables. To some, he was a genius playing chess while everyone else was stuck on checkers. To others, he was a reckless billionaire poking a bear he shouldn't be messing with. But no matter which side people stood on, one thing was certain. This case had changed the rules of the game. Within hours, clips of Musk's courtroom defense went viral, analyzed frame by legal experts, business strategists, and everyday people who had never taken an interest in corporate trials before. People weren't just watching. They were engaged, debating the deeper implications of what had just unfolded. Some saw it as proof that the system was broken. Others saw it as a rare moment where someone powerful fought back and actually won. The more people dug into the case, the clearer it became. This wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a much larger issue. Back in his office, Musk watched the chaos unfold, but his focus wasn't on the headlines. He was already thinking ahead. "How deep does this go?" he murmured, skimming through files his team had compiled after the case. The patterns were clear. The system wasn't just flawed. It was designed to be. As he leaned back in his chair, Samantha Carter, his lead attorney, entered the room. Her expression was a mix of exhaustion and disbelief. "You realize what you just did, right?" she said, shaking her head. "You didn't just win a case, Elon. You changed the entire conversation around corporate power, legal manipulation, and government overreach. People are looking at this differently now." Musk smirked, his eyes gleaming with a quiet satisfaction. "Good," he said simply. "They should." But the transformation didn't stop there. The aftershocks of the trial rippled across industries. Tech CEOs, investors, and business leaders were now paying attention. If someone as powerful as Musk could be targeted and nearly silenced, what did that mean for those with fewer resources, fewer connections? A month later, a bipartisan bill was introduced in Congress aimed at increasing transparency in federal investigations involving corporate litigation. It wasn't perfect, but it was a step, one that never would have happened if Musk hadn't stood his ground. Meanwhile, Wexler, the once untouchable prosecutor, found himself under scrutiny. Questions were raised about his past cases. How many times had crucial evidence been buried? How many other defendants had been pushed into impossible corners? The pressure mounted, and soon after, he resigned. His reputation, once untouchable, was now tarnished beyond repair. And as for Musk, he didn't just walk away from the case victorious. He walked away with a new mission. "Let's build something," he told his team one evening. "Not just rockets, not just AI. Let's build a system that doesn't let this happen again." His words weren't just an idea. They were a commitment. Within weeks, Musk had redirected some of Tesla and SpaceX's best minds into researching legal automation, artificial intelligence for case analysis, and tools that could bring more transparency to complex corporate trials. If the system was rigged, Musk's philosophy was simple: rewrite the rules. But the impact didn't stop at policy changes in technology. His battle in the courtroom became a wake-up call for industries worldwide. Other CEOs, entrepreneurs, and even small business owners started speaking up, questioning whether they, too, had been subjected to hidden legal pressures designed to control rather than regulate. For the first time, people weren't just accepting that this was how things worked. They were challenging it. And just like that, what started as a courtroom battle became the catalyst for something even greater. This wasn't just about one trial. It was about changing the future. Before you go, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss another mind-blowing story like this one. And if you think Musk's legal genius was impressive, just wait until you hear what he does next. Click on the next video. You won't believe what's coming. The trial had ended, but the impact of Musk's actions was just beginning to unfold. This wasn't just about a courtroom battle. It was about a seismic shift in how corporate power, legal overreach, and the balance of influence were perceived. For Musk, it was never just about winning. It was about proving a point. He had walked into that courtroom not just to defend himself, but to expose something deeper: the hidden mechanisms that controlled industries, silence innovation, and suppress those who refused to follow the unwritten rules of power. And now, the world was watching. The ripple effect was immediate. Other business leaders, some who had previously kept their heads down, started speaking out. Stories surfaced about similar cases, about executives and innovators who had been quietly pressured, blocked, or undermined in ways eerily similar to what had happened to Musk. The narrative was changing. For years, people had seen Musk as the billionaire visionary, the man who wanted to colonize Mars, build AI-driven technology, and create the future. But this case had revealed another side of him, one that was just as relentless in fighting for what he believed in, even when the odds were against him. A week after the trial, Musk stood in front of a packed press conference. Cameras flashed. Reporters leaned forward in anticipation, waiting for his next move. Instead of a statement, Musk pulled up a presentation on the screen behind him. It wasn't about Tesla. It wasn't about SpaceX. It was about legal transparency. "The systems we trust should not be used as weapons," he said, his voice calm but firm. "We assume justice is blind, but in reality, it sees what it's told to see. And that needs to change." The screen displayed a blueprint, an AI-driven, decentralized legal platform designed to track cases, detect hidden biases, and create public accountability in corporate litigation. It was Musk's answer to the system that had tried to break him. If the game was rigged, He would change the game itself. Investors were stunned. This wasn't just about business anymore. It was about the future of fairness in industries that affected billions of people. And Musk? He wasn't backing down. Someone asked me the other day if I was afraid of making enemies. He said, looking directly into the cameras. My answer? I don't care. If you're afraid to challenge the system, you're already playing by its rules. The internet exploded. Some called him reckless. Some called him a hero. But no one could deny one thing. Musk had changed the conversation. And once the truth is exposed, there's no going back. This wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of something even bigger. Before you go, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what's coming next. If this story amazed you, the next one will leave you speechless. Click on the next video and keep discovering the untold stories that shape our world.